Hi, everybody. Hi. Welcome to this evening, the 24th edition of New Democracy, our series which researches democracy. Is our democracy in transition? Are institutions as we know them, election, political parties, are they decreasing in effect and appreciation or not? Are new initiatives who are started by social entrepreneurs, citizens, cooperatives, and who are taking more and more responsibility in the public sphere, are they a phenomenon of this new era of democratization? In this series, we talk about that. We look at democracy from a transition theory perspective, and we wonder whether there are initiatives in a niche, experiments, nice pilots, in combination with trends on the global level or on the national level, with combination force are actually putting pressure on the system as we know it to go into transition, to transform into another form. And today we are focusing on a new phenomenon called digital commons. Well, actually it's a very old phenomenon. The commons are very old. The Magna Carta talked about it already. But, well, the digital commons is quite a new subject. Pay as you like it. The Pakhuis de Zwijger social innovation is a way to ask you to, well, donate money if you're really happy and you're rich and you're happy with the programs at Pakhuis de Zwijger, which from a principle perspective are free of charge. But since there is no subsidy anymore in this house, we try to do something new and ask you to pay as you like it. Well, you can go to dezwijger.nl/pay if you want to contribute to marvelous programs which are free of charge for those who cannot pay. Good.
Plus you have downstairs the booth where you can pay as well.
Look, already interaction with the audience. Yes, that's true. There are machines. But they are not there anymore, but they were there. Thank you so much. Because that didn't work. Well, actually, it did work a little bit, but then there was queuing going on there because everybody's trying to use the machine and then nobody actually paid. So we're trying to do something else now. I don't know exactly how much money was raised. Yeah, raised. Whatever. Let's go to digital commoning. My name is Natasja van den Berg. I'm the proud host of this series. Love it, and we are really trying to create a curriculum, a new language of talking about democracy in a new way, trying to connect the dots between all these beautiful initiatives which are happening all over the world actually in revitalizing democracy. Today, talking about the commons. The series, but before I'm going to do that, the series is an initiative of Pakhuis de Zwijger and Netwerk Democratie. Can I say network democracy? Yeah. Okay. And they have two beautiful announcements to make, and I'm going to start with that. The first is that we, in this program, the New Democracy program, we have talked about dissent a lot, which are initiatives, tools to actually, well, involve citizens in a new way with digital tooling. And there is a publication. It's not been presented yet. On Friday, it will be presented to our Minister of the Interior. But we have a publication moment now, and you can get it already. The Minister doesn't have it yet. And there is, I think, a box here now, and at the end of the evening, you can get a copy of that. And it's in Dutch, but it says if you want to use this digital tooling, you can use it, and there are examples in it and how to do it. Yeah, you already have it. Good. And the other thing is that a friend organization of network democracy is Framed. And they also are part of this program tonight. They contributed to this evening. And they have a beautiful exposition called House of Wisdom, which is curated by a Turkish collective from Istanbul. And that exhibition is an exhibition in a library in one. And it's exploring the significance of book libraries and archives. And it will open on Friday, the 24th. Yeah, next Friday at 8 o'clock in Amsterdam North at the Eipromenade. And if you want to see it, it's beautiful. Go see that. And then the last formal announcement, and that is that we're very happy that tonight we are also partnering with the European Cultural Foundation. So then all the official announcements have been made. Good. Tonight, we're going to talk about digital commons. And of course, for those who are a bit older, who know the moment that's like in the beginning of the 90s, everybody was starting about there's something new going on. It's called the internet. Wow. And you could email with each other suddenly, and you could actually find libraries all over the world, and you could just connect through the internet to all this amazing new knowledge. It was quite a promise of change, a promise of hope, a promise of revitalizing democracy, of democratization of knowledge. It would create a much better society. That was the promise. But in recent years, nobody's talking about that promise anymore. I mean, we're talking about things like the new next level of capitalism is platform capitalism. And all these platforms are actually taking over internet. We're completely confronted every day with the news that there is something going on which is called fake news. And the internet actually somehow became a bit of a problem, actually, to challenges democracy as we know it. What happened? And there are only that's one part of the discussion. And the other part is that there are all these amazing initiatives which are actually using the internet as we would hoped it would develop, and making tools and create communities which are actually true to that original ambition. And tonight we have two powerful initiatives presented here which are actually doing that. And we're going to talk about that, about these two initiatives as a starting point of the night. Engin Önder from Turkey and Imre Jonk, I will introduce them later, or in a bit longer. They will present their initiatives. And then the conversation will become a bit more general, and I will ask Femke Hakau, sorry, I'm not pronouncing it correct, but she's working, I am, at the office of the CTO, the Chief Technology Office of this municipality of Amsterdam. She's really an expert on social innovation. And we're going to ask, well, I would say a friend of the show, Jaromil, who is a researcher in philosophy and technology, who's been on many of our programs if we talk about really difficult stuff with internet and technology, and he knows everything about it. And I can constantly go to him and say, please explain to me what was just said. His creations on the internet are amazing for communities, and he's built Dyn.org, a non-profit software house gathering the contributions of a growing number of artisans and socially engaged developers. And he will join the conversation after we have had these two initiative presented here. And then the last thing is, I have to mention, is the third part of this show, the element of this show, I should say, is you. Because you cannot talk about new democracy if you do not have the participation of the demos. For tonight, you are the demos. And that's why this position here is for you. And we have the conversation there with some bunch of people, but the idea is that you actually join the conversation. And if you want to do that, you're going to stand here. There is a mic. You can stand there as long as you want. And but the only question I have is that you actually contribute to the conversation. If the thing you raised is dealt with, you just go away back to your seat, because then you open up the floor for somebody else to contribute. And there's one law, there's no queuing going on. So I don't want to see like 10 people standing here, oh, I want to say something, because that really doesn't help a slow, beautiful, intellectual conversation with the demos. So one rule, no queuing, but you can stand here as long as you want, but use that power selectively. If you think, okay, my point has been raised, has been discussed, go back to your seat and give the floor to somebody else. Those are the three elements. So initiatives, experts, you. and me. Let's start the conversation. Is there anybody who wants to raise a point before I'm going to start? No? Okay, good. Oh, really? You're going to leave at 9 o'clock and you miss this beautiful conversation. Yes, there is a live stream and it's going to be recorded and it's going to be online. So know that. That's why you have to talk into the mic so everybody at home can hear what you have to contribute. And there is actually on the site of Pakhuis Zwijger a beautiful file where all 24 other episodes are found, and you can also, there are also some literature there, so you can check that out. Okay, good. Thank you for that question, because I should have mentioned that before. Good. So I'm going to invite two beautiful speakers to the table. The first is Engin Önder. We're very happy that he's here. He's from, yeah, please join me on the table. You brought your own fan base. That's great. This has never happened in the 24 editions that somebody from the audience is shouting this enthusiastic. Well, that puts a lot of pressure on you, I think. But you're one of the initiators of 140 Journos, a citizen journalism platform in Turkey. You were unsatisfied by the mainstream media, and you started a Twitter account to get the message of undocumented, unnoticed news into the mainstream.
Exactly.
And during the Gezi Park protests, you started this. You gave face to events that were neglected. Very good. Welcome.
Thank you.
Why are people so passionate that you're in this program?
I don't know. Turkey is a hot topic.
Yeah. I can imagine, yeah. Let me first introduce the second speaker to the table, because he works for Amsterdam Wireless, an initiative for free wireless mesh networks to connect places in Amsterdam, part of the Vrijfunk Netherlands, and that's a community part of a global movement for free infrastructure and open frequencies. He works also at Bits of Freedom, a leading digital rights organization in the Netherlands. Imre Jonk, please join the conversation. Yes. Okay, guys. Also fan base. Yeah, thanks. Good. Gentlemen. Het is helemaal niet handig dat ik hier... Nou ja, oké. Gentlemen, let me first ask you just to explain what your initiative is about, right? I explained it briefly, but can you talk a little bit about how did you start your initiative 140 Journos, and what has been the effect of initiating this idea?
It started as a citizen journalism collective. Citizen journalism, for those of you who don't know this term, it is a group of citizens acting journalistically. And they do that because mainstream media lack coverage in issues that people should know.
So you're not a trained journalist?
I'm not a trained journalist. I didn't have any intention, any dream, any career goal to be a journalist.
What was your career dream?
I would like to be an advertiser, and I would make millions of dollars. That was a dream, but that I didn't end up there. I ended up in a different reality. I'm now in front of you. And what brought me here is a very sincere story that I have. One day I wake up and I hear that state warplanes, Turkish state warplanes, bombarded 34 civilians in the Turkish-Iraqi border. You know, that's news, okay? Like, when you know such thing happened, you switch on your television, or you buy a newspaper, whatever media choice you have, and you see the news in the headlines, because that's the big news. I didn't see.
How did you learn about that fact?
Through Twitter.
Okay.
That's why my friends and I chose Twitter at the end of 2011 to kick off a project that would uncover stories that people should know, but mainstream media lack coverage of. Yeah. And 140 was the character limit. It was raised now, like a few weeks ago. But 140 was the character limit of Twitter. And journos is the slang version of saying journalists because we were not trained. I didn't even get journalism 101 class. So I learned everything on the road with without any business plan, without any career goal. You end up in journalism. That can also be a reality. That's the situation in my example. And for the first 1 or 1.5 years, we were only able to raise a kind of enthusiasm in the activist community of Turkey, let's say. We were about to give up because we thought more people should have known about the lack of coverage, about how screwed the ecopolitics of media in Turkey is. They didn't. But then you also learned how Turkish media is doing thanks to the Gezi Park protests. It was the biggest civilian uprising at the time in Turkey, in the middle of Istanbul, the biggest city of Turkey, in the biggest square of the city. That was a protest, and mainstream media did what they do the best. They remained silent. But that time, since it was so obvious, it was over there. It was a lot of people saw it. Istanbul is almost 20 million people living there, so you can't hide a protest in the middle of Istanbul.
You can try, but you cannot.
Mainstream media did it. Probably Turkish mainstream media attitude in this protest through a funny example, Penguin documentary running on CNN's Turkey franchise. So a lot of people, including a greater society in Turkey, knew about the issue, and we were like, wow, we made it, because we couldn't make everybody citizen journalists, but when we wake up one day, millions of people turn into citizen journalists thanks to this event. That's the story. And then 2013, that's the year that these events took place. 2014, 2015, we got through like a peak process of citizen journalism activity in Turkey. But then, maybe you also followed the events over there. A lot of bombings by terrorist organizations, coup attempt, and state of emergency that's been ongoing for the last 1.5 years.
Yes.
That has dramatically changed everything we have built. We have built a community of 500 people acting journalistically and regularly. That's not their job. Like they were in the situation, they were in the shoes that I had. And they felt responsible. And they took their phone, witnessed into something on the street. They reported to us. We verified, we shared. That was the process going on in the peak process. But then clashes began again in Turkey with Turkish state and PKK in the southeast Turkey. And then bombings took place. And then coup attempt. And then state of emergency. That's the main story that you know about Turkey today. But I didn't come here to give you more sad stories, but rather I came here to tell you a different perspective about what's going on. Because it's easier to cry, It's easier to flee. It's easier to give up. Or just like, it's easier to demolish something rather than, building it. It takes much more time and it requires much more resources and collaboration.
And what is your effect now with these 500 people having actually next to their daily jobs this new function and being a citizen journalist? What is this group, this community creating or affecting democracy or society as you know it in Turkey? What is the effect?
When we built this community of 500 people, Time magazine in 2015 named me as the man transforming journalism in Turkey and featured me among...
Oh, that's the fan base.
That's the fan base, probably. You all read Time magazine. And that was a bold statement, but they had a point because, there is the classical structure of mainstream media that is owned by rich, wealthy men who are trying to make the law through subtle ways. So that's the story of media almost everywhere in uncivilized societies.
And well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I know some other examples of societies which would call themselves civilized and where middle-aged or old men are running media.
Could be an example. So that was actually, that had a point, that bold statement. So what happened to these people? Our working principle was, you witness something on the street or somewhere that you have access to. You see it, you document it, you report it, we verify it, we publish it with credit to you. In doing so, we remove money from the equation, you know, because mainstream media do it by trying to preserve profit and trying to inform public at the same time, and that is conflict of interest. That doesn't work, and that will never work. That's what we should accept. The ecopolitics of mainstream media is corrupt, and there is no way out. So we have to build another method so that people can inform each other.
Yeah.
That was the principle. That was working.
But that's a bold statement, right? Because then you say that actually all commercial media, which has a profit model, is in its by definition has a tendency to corrupt. That's what you're.
It is doomed to corrupt.
It's doomed to corrupt.
Destined
That's
to
your
corrupt.
that's a bold statement.
That was our argument from day one.
Yeah.
And it's still true.
Yeah.
It's still accurate.
The profit element has to go out of the equation to get
like
honest.
I will tell you what's going on in my neighborhood, and you will tell yours.
Yeah.
Like exchange.
Yeah.
A different kind of media economy, so that we exchange happenings. That didn't work well because the system was based on witnessing. What if you have nothing on the street or somewhere that you have access to? Has nothing that you can witness. That's what happened in Turkey. You go out right now. Maybe some of you go to Turkey as
because
tourists.
the major events are actually in invisibility. You cannot see them.
Public space is naked now. Okay, there is nothing that you can interpret.
Yes.
But Istanbul was so hectic. 20 million people, I'm telling you. 20 million people they have something to say. Some of them, okay, let's say 1% of them have something to say. They go out, there are squares. Squares have political contexts.
Yes.
People have special days that they want to commemorate, celebrate, or, I don't know, use in some sense. But then they don't do it right now. Public space is controlled by legal means. We are under martial law. We are in a war. There is state of emergency that's been going on for the last 1.5 years.
Yeah.
Declared in July 2016, and we are here today. It's going on. Every 3 months, this is extended. I read a news like last month when the renewal date for the state of emergency for 3 more months came in, and that was a like breaking news. State of emergency got extended for 3 more months. I said, wow, is that a news? It's not a news, it's a pattern, you know? It's going to be extended, it's going to be extended, because the power that the authorities get is like a magic stick.
Okay, and so then what do you do? Because if your model is based on exchanging manifestations,
witnessing and exchanging,
exactly, and you cannot witness anything in public square because there is no public space anymore.
There is
That's
no news
actually
then.
what you say.
There's
There's
nothing
no
that
news.
we can exchange.
No.
There is no news. You switch on TV and there is only entertainment. That's a different thing. That's ecopolitics. That's like gatekeeping.
And then
you have the news,
what do you do?
but you don't deliver. That's what mainstream media do. What we couldn't do was, we don't have the news, so we don't deliver. Because we don't, like, our income, news income,
Yeah.
is not there any longer. So what do you do then? Citizen journalism, as we know, that's what I say, very boldly, to make it super clear. Citizen journalism, as we know, is dead. You don't go out, you don't witness,
No.
you don't take a
Okay.
picture, you don't send.
Okay, stop.
This is over.
Yes, stop. Thank you.
Yeah.
This was my introduction question. Please introduce
Okay.
your initiative. But it's a good answer.
Yeah.
It's over. Okay, so we're talking about something which is over already. Yeah. Let me introduce the other guest. Can you explain what actually you are doing with Amsterdam Wireless?
So what I'm doing is creating wireless mesh networks in
What is a
Amsterdam.
mesh network?
A mesh is just the topology of the network. So traditional communication networks that are created by your ISP, they are like star form. So they have like one central exchange for your telephone connections,
Yeah.
and then there are lots of houses in the neighborhood that are connected to that central exchange, and then from there to the provider's network. And
Yeah.
what we do is we try to have people communicate with each other directly, without having to go through anyone else's network.
Yes.
And basically create the internet like it was meant to be, like peer-to-peer communications,
Yeah.
without any intermediary parties.
Yeah.
And this is great for all sorts of communication, of course, but it's especially useful if you don't want to rely or cannot rely on existing communication infrastructure. So
Example already.
yeah, so an example, not really in the Netherlands, maybe, because here everyone is kind of pretty well connected. But for me, when I started with Amsterdam Wireless, when I got involved there, for me it was Nepal Wireless, like a network in Nepal that I thought the guy's name was Mahatmir Poon.
Mhm.
He had to hike for 2 days to get his email. He would walk once a month, 2 days to the nearest city or little town that had internet connection,
Yeah.
and then he could get on his email and communicate with people everywhere on the world.
It was a
So-
bit like in 2000, right? If you backpacked, I backpacked then through Africa, and then an internet cafe. I
Yes.
can, yeah.
Kinda, yeah.
This is just to show you that I'm not really a technical person, so you need to explain it really well, because then
Yes.
I understand. Yeah.
I'll try, but it's a bit hard.
But because and then some people in the audience will say, "Oh my God, is it that level?" It won't be, but just for the start, and because some of the audience perhaps are at the same technological level as I am.
Yes, I understand. So all Mahatmir Poon had to do was somehow get the connection from
Yeah.
the neighboring town
Yeah.
to his village.
Yeah.
And because it was such a long distance, it was really expensive to lay a cable or something. So what he did was he called some people from BBC World News, and he asked them, well, can you send us some guys over that can help us make this connection, get us linked up to the internet? And they said, well, we know some guys that can help you, and they sent them over. One guy was from Belgium, the other was a Finnish guy, I believe. And they helped him with installing these large TV like satellite dishes, and convert them to use them for Wi-Fi frequencies.
Yeah.
So they were just making a very long distance Wi-Fi connection between those two cities, and it worked. He got to connect first hospitals and schools, and I believe
And
now
it doesn't use satellite. It uses frequencies which are just you don't need to go to space.
No,
Okay.
you don't.
Yeah.
It's just it's a microwave link. It's a direct connection
Yes.
between those two dishes.
Yeah, but it's the same technology, but it uses different waves.
Yeah, it requires that the both parties can actually see each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
I think we got
The first question,
No,
yes.
very good. No, thanks. Continue.
Okay, I believe that Mahatmipun right now has connected more than 44,000 people to the internet through his network, through Nepal Wireless. And I found it very, very interesting, very good project of him. And then in Amsterdam here, I was myself around 2013, the same as when you started with your project. I was busy with getting into ham radio. And now ham radio is kind of the same as what people use with the Citizens band, like Pakhuis, 27 MC. Yes, exactly. But it's you need a license for it, and you can use way more frequencies, and you can do like speech, data. You can do everything on your own power. So you have your own radio. The other person has their radio, and then you can communicate.
These people, this community is following also police frequencies to hear whether there is an accident or something going on, and then.
Not necessarily, but yeah, that's also very interesting. Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
You are good at it.
So what I was doing in 2013 is I just got my radio license. I made a few calls to people, and then there was this guy in the former Shell Tower, which is right now the Amsterdam Dance and Music, and he was operating a repeater installation, so people could communicate over his repeater, basically.
Yeah.
And to me, that was very interesting, of course. And I thought, well, it's,
because that would extend the distance.
Yes.
In which you can use it. Yeah.
Of course.
You can create a bigger network.
Yeah, but that would be, of course, the third party in the network. So actually, you don't want it. But this location got its internet access directly from Antwerp in Belgium. I thought, wait, how is that possible? Antwerp, is there like an ISP that gives them internet access from Antwerp in Amsterdam? But as it turned out, there are people from Antwerp from a project called Wireless Belgium. They had wireless links to Zwijger, which is a small town in Zeeland. There was like a grain silo or something, like a big building for farmers.
Yeah. And there was something like a satellite
and there
receiver
was a connection between those two places. And then from there the signal went on to Leiden. Oh. And then from Leiden it went on to Amsterdam, to a hackerspace in like Amsterdam West. And then from there it went to the former Shell Tower. Yeah. And that's how we got the internet or internet access there. And it really inspired me, and I thought, well, maybe I can help expand this network, and it's really, really interesting because now you can have very high speed data communication on freely available frequencies. You see, ham radio is not something that everyone can do. You need a license, you have regulations, you cannot do everything you want. And with Wi-Fi, everyone can use it. So that's how it started.
Because those frequencies are free.
Yes.
They are not used by another official organ like radio, or they are just free to use.
Yes, everyone can use it without any
permits or with anything.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's how your phone communicates with your router at home. Yeah. Through Wi-Fi. Everyone can use it.
Yeah, I thanks for using this Jip and Janneke language to explain your initiative to me. And what is, that was exactly the same question. What is the effect of this initiative? How do you contribute then to, what contribution are you creating for the community who uses it? What is the advantage?
Yeah, so right now there are, we have a few terrains that are used by squatters that we provide internet access to through Amsterdam Wireless. There's the hackerspace that's connected, of course, and a few other buildings, and also a building that's used by amateur radio operators as well. So they can link their repeater installations over the internet and over our network. And then we have other networks that we are connected to. So
like the Belgian ones, probably.
Yes, yeah. and of course there's this thing called the internet. You might have heard it. We also connected over the internet. to I think to a network called Dynamic Network 42. It's a large internet simulation that uses like VPN tunnels. And then we have Freifunk, which is in Germany. Freifunk is that started in something like 2004, maybe even earlier. And it's an initiative to provide free and open internet access points without any fear for legal consequences. Because there was this law called the Störerhaftung, and the Störerhaftung would keep the owner of the access point or the subscriber of the internet connection
responsible,
accountable for all the traffic over the network.
Yes.
And it really helped people withheld people from opening up their access points or gas network because of these consequences.
And so you ended your contribution by, well, actually, in my case, the citizen journalism initiative is dead because public space is gone.
The form of it, as we know.
Yes, we're
is
going to, of course, contribute.
Because you can never stop it. People
of course not.
are still thinking, criticizing,
Yeah.
having feelings and having thoughts. So they have another formats to share it. I'm still like on it. Like I never lost belief in it. I still do it, but the article that Time wrote is invalid. That's what I say.
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, thanks. But I wanted to sum up your initiative because that somehow shows potential of actually the redemocratization of the internet, right?
Yes.
As we know it today.
Yes, definitely, because we can also provide access to people who don't have easy access to the internet.
Yeah.
For example, in Germany, there are refugee camps who get their internet access through Freifunk, and it's a very easy way for people to get on the internet because it's just an open access point.
Yeah.
And it can also help during, say, emergencies or if internet access is blocked or anything. And we also try to provide services within the network itself, so people don't have to rely on the internet and seen just as an access point.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so these are two ideas, or notions, concepts of, well, putting an alternative next to the mainstream, and because the mainstream is in some way corrupted or built on the wrong principles, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what is exactly your biggest beef with the internet as we know it, as we know it?
The biggest obstacle.
The biggest problem.
The biggest problem with the internet right now is that it's getting more centralized. So there are large companies that control the biggest part of whatever flows over the internet.
Yeah.
Companies like Google and Facebook.
Yeah.
And of course your internet provider. But because of the centralization, you get companies who have a lot of power, and I'm not too comfortable with that.
No, that's clear. And it's actually the same analysis, but then on a different domain of democracy, right?
Yeah,
in
like
journalism, in your case.
In
It's very different.
Of course, it's very different.
One is talking about.
Nobody hears you now. So yeah.
I'm standing at
I said. I mean, they both have an institute,
Yes.
and they both. Yeah.
Yes,
but you say it's very different.
Very different. One is talking about infrastructure, and the other one is talking about the content.
That's
if
correct.
if you separate that, it's very easy, and if you democratize that, it's very easy to make a whole new way of communicating to each other.
Yes.
And the two guys should actually
Join
work
together.
together.
Of
and-
course.
Yeah.
And well, there is one thing. The infrastructure is a technical infrastructure, and we should democratize that by maybe giving the government the task to provide the infrastructure for everybody. Or if the government doesn't do it, we could do it ourselves like also generating our own renewable energy, etc. But we could do our own thing that we need, and it is much cheaper and much safer.
Thanks. Okay, of course, yeah. Good. So this evening is called Digital Commons,
Yeah.
right? And that really helps. I mean, both of your examples are examples of where a community creates its own infrastructure, social infrastructure in your case, people in your case, waves, as in a technical infrastructure. But it's both a community which is owning that new infrastructure and who's trying, because they criticize the institutions as we know it, right?
Definitely.
Okay. So what we are doing in this series of New Democracy, we are trying to think of what do these initiatives teach us on revitalizing democracy as we know it? Can it be an alternative for the institutions as we know it? And how can we create or transform the institutions as we know with the initiatives like these, right? And we're trying to find, we call that design principles of a new system. And that is what principles are there which we have to adhere to make sure that it is a community-owned thing or which doesn't create the same problems as the system we are criticizing. Yeah. So what kind of design principles do we need to look for? And that's the big subject of tonight, with you two cases as examples to look into that question. And I'm going to ask the two other persons to join the conversation now, if you are okay, if you say I want to know something more about these two initiatives. If you don't, join us on the table. Please give them a warm welcome. Femke Hartjouw and Jeremil. Why does the city have a CTO, as Chief Technology Officer, and a office?
In an office, yes. I think we are in this paradigm shift of what we see here of the institute in total, all kind of different institutes. And the city of Amsterdam, and especially the council that's now set it in our city, they thought we can just let go, just let it happen. Or we can see what is going on and challenge it from the inside out. And I think that's why they installed Ger Baron as a CTO, as a Chief Technology Officer, and a CTO office to join him 3 years ago, to challenge the system within itself. And that's why I think we are there, to challenge the system and to see what the future can bring, like in the flaws and in the strengths and the weaknesses of the system, and to see what we can do in total. Because everything we do as a city and a CTO, we try to do it with the city ecosystem. And these are blurry words for a lot of people, but the ecosystem means with all the knowledge institutes, with all the people, the citizens, the businesses, to see what the challenges are and to make it common in a way.
Jeremil, thank God you're at the table now.
Oh,
because
yes.
I have a dedication before you ask me a question. Can I do a dedication?
Yeah.
It's to you and all your colleagues.
Yeah.
I think as a warm welcome to Amsterdam, I would like to dedicate the reading of a Turkish poet, Nazim Hikmet, and that's that. It's called The Walnut Tree. My head foaming clouds, see inside me and out. I am a walnut tree in Gulane Park, an old walnut, knot by knot, shred by shred. Neither you are aware of this, nor the police. I am a walnut tree in Gulane Park. My leaves are nimble, nimble like fish in water. My leaves are sheer, sheer like a silk handkerchief. Pick, wipe, my rose, the tear from your eyes. My leaves are my hands. I have 100,000. I touch you with 100,000 hands. I touch Istanbul. My leaves are my eyes. I look in amazement. I watch you with 100,000 eyes. I watch Istanbul. Like 100,000 hearts. Beat my leaves. I am a walnut tree in Gulane Park. Neither you are aware of this, nor the police.
Goosebumps. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you are a brave man. That's
Yeah.
what Jarmel is saying.
And all the people working with you.
And the community you are
Yeah.
representing tonight.
Thank
Now it's not a surprise that you are a researcher in the philosophy of technology, but also in philosophy in life, of course. Thank you for this contribution already. But you are actually an expert on alternative ways of using technology in society to actually go beyond or to create systems next to problematic aspects of technology as we use it today, right? What is your, these are examples of digital commoning. Can you explain for those in the audience who are not really into that subject already? Can you give us a first brief? What is a digital common? What's the definition of that?
So in the context, it's a very broad definition. In the
Yes.
context of network, vrij netwerk, I think first of all, maybe a little bibliography. I think one of the best books describing it is by Armin Medoš, Vrije Netze, a researcher that left us, unfortunately, this year. And, well, a commons, of course, like the legal term of a commons is something that gives a lot. I'm gonna chop it off pretty in a banal way, but it's something that gives a lot of yield, is a resource, and this resource is not public or private. It can be used in a private way or a public way, and it doesn't exactly. It's not finite immediately. It could be finite. An example of commons is a forest, for instance. No, or water. Water is considered commons. So in a digital world, this becomes pretty tricky because in one side, one attribute of the digital is that there is no finiteness. If you copy one thing, it's digital. I give it to you, but I'm not losing it. I just make a copy. So per itself, by itself, it's easy to make a commons in the digital world.
Yeah.
As of infrastructure, when we go on the infrastructure that on which the digital runs, then there is a problem that is evident and that you mentioned, Imre, is like, okay, there is a centralization, there is a finite infrastructure, there is a maintenance cost for this infrastructure. There's a centralization that worries me as well. And when I think of it, I don't think only of Google and Facebook. I think of Cisco. I think of, like big cables. Who owns the cables and these data cables? And that is difficult to say that is a common, although it is. On it travels a lot of content that is very important to our democracies. Yet it has a cost of maintenance that the public is not able to maintain, that is not really carrying, as an infrastructure. So we don't consider it an infrastructure like it is electricity or water or gas. Those are all pipes. Now, the internet is also one more pipe that connects our houses, but it's not treated exactly that way. So what is a digital common? It's a very broad question. Now, I would like to just stick to the infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
It will be the actual infrastructure that enables the sort of interaction that is so dear to us, which is the interwebs and all those kittens that we use on those. And it's important to keep it neutral and to keep it available to everyone for personal development, for education, for freedom of speech, for many good reasons, for many ethical reasons. So I would say that is a sort of commons.
Yeah.
And further, if we switch from the infrastructure to the content, because we have this distinction running tonight, then there is the aspect of the data that goes on it.
Yes.
And this is a tricky distinction because data is, most of the data that we put online is private. It's our private data. When we log in into a website, when we open an account on Facebook, on Tinder, on whatever we want to use for whatever desire, need, or demand that we have, then we put our private data there. And that is private. But the relational value of putting this data in contact, especially in a city, which is a dense settlement. So a place where desires, demands, and people, everyone is looking for something, just like to sing it up a little bit. It's a relational value that is being extracted in a very aggressive way by multinational companies that are enclosing this data in silos, and could be argued, I argue, is a commons as well.
Yeah.
So there we have a distinction between the infrastructure and the content. I stay with you with the fact that there is an analogy in these two words. I mean, they are complementary, and we need to look at them as a commons. And I stay with the gentleman that made the comment that it should be a public infrastructure. But I think here we have a problem, because we have been privatizing like hell in Europe in the last 10 years, which
30 years.
30 years, yeah, which is a problem. I mean, England is paying its toll on it already. And but on the other side, I think that it's difficult to decline it in the case of our guest, because think if the government will be running the internet there, like if we can even call it a legitimate government that is running the internet there, that would be a problem. Yeah. So I think in this discussion there is a lot of clashing. I don't have an answer to that. No. Maybe he has. But there is a problem in talking about privatization and public infrastructure in different contexts, in a context of conflict, of crisis, or in a context of peace and democracy, where we are luckily living.
Yeah. Okay. Now you have to introduce yourself to the audience, because otherwise nobody knows who you are.
I'm Dick van Helk.
And are you? Do you have anything with the Commons?
I am a commoner. I am a public person, and I'm trying to do everything for society, and not.
You actually initiated the biggest cooperative on wind energy. That really helps as a context. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
And I worked. I worked as my profession since 1968 in information technology. Yeah. So, and what is actually interfering is the internet and the infrastructure, and we should separate that.
Okay.
Because
the cables with the
anything. No. You could have internet just through paper. We could. We could exchange information, yes. And we did that already for, as long as we talk to each other. Yeah. So the internet is just
a concept.
No. The infrastructure is a tool. Yeah. But the communication is much wider now than it was 1,000 years ago. Okay. We didn't like the guy from Nepal. He has to travel 2 days to look at his email and come back. So if you keep that in mind, that the information and data, more or less the same, and data, that's really what has changed now in the information technology. We used to sell computers, hardware. We used to sell software. You cannot earn much money with that, but you can earn a lot of money with our data. Yeah? And by giving my data to Mark Zuckerberg or so, I don't do that, but then you give him an asset, my asset, which he is selling to the world. And that's really what is going on now in information technology. We are no longer talking about the infrastructure, computers and networks. We are just finding out business models
on data.
Yeah, and if we have this discussion, and that could be very short, on infrastructure on one hand, it could be clear if there is a public infrastructure, like the rail for the
Yeah.
train.
It's
Okay,
no
but-
more.
That's
It's no
fine.
more public, I believe.
Sorry?
Is it public?
Yeah,
The
it's
railways,
The
not
railway
the,
is
yeah,
public, yeah.
Yeah.
because in England it's not.
No,
No,
it's
no,
true.
no, but
Okay, no. Thank you. But the question was, in Turkey, I mean, you can say it should be public, like the railways. In a democracy, that's a good idea. But respond to Jeremy, who says, in Turkey, if it's government-owned, that infrastructure, you have a problem.
well, that's the real problem.
Yeah.
The infrastructure should be controlled by the people. In a democracy, we own the railway, we own the infrastructure.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
But you understand
we
that
have.
in where
No, but
democratic
the-
institutions are lacking, you have a problem if it's
Yes,
public.
of course. So
Okay.
we should be, as people, more involved with what the government or whoever is
Yeah.
doing with our infrastructure.
So why, if we are in a democracy, as Dick is telling us, should you create a infrastructure which is not public, owned by the government?
Because you want to have a little bit of control over your own data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you say
Because-
you need to have ownership as a community of the technology, of the infrastructure, because everything which goes over that infrastructure or in that infrastructure, the data can also then be controlled by your own community.
That's very true.
Okay.
Yes.
That is the argument for creating something which is not public, it's not private, but something in between the definition of the most vague but beautiful definition of a commons.
By the way, I want
Yeah.
to make an addition.
Yeah.
What's happening in Turkey is not like you are talking about a hypothetical issue.
No.
What if the
It's
government
happening.
owns? No, government already owns it,
Yeah.
like through different means. I don't know, like my mother learned how to use DNS 10 years ago. My mother. And then she had to learn how to use VPN. Then VPN, like main VPN outlets, like, I don't know, Hotspot Shield. When such services were blocked, we had to learn personal VPNs, which in some way is a reference to digital commons. So government is actually in charge of all of our communication, even though they don't own it. Like, I don't know, copper cables or fiber cables. Private companies own them, but government give the license. And when the government are authoritarian, they can, I don't know, take you down in one day.
Yeah.
With a decree.
Mm.
So you obey. That's already what's going on. It's not hypothetical. That I
No,
want
it's
to make
not.
an addition
It's
about
not
this.
hypothetical
No,
at
it's
all.
not hypothetical. I sort of disagree with this methodological suggestion of separating infrastructure and content, mostly because I am with McLuhan on this. The medium is the message.
Yeah.
And infrastructure does influence, the way an infrastructure is designed does influence the way we vehicle content on it. So
Yeah.
there is an intertwined thing that there is a certain complexity which we cannot reduce here.
But
Yeah.
like, if we can make internet a separate state and equip it with soldiers, then it would work. But under such circumstances, state is already in charge and is capable of blocking it at any time.
Okay. Once.
But
yeah.
the commons movement is also capable of blocking it every time. If the hackers movement is there, anonymous, for example, is there, that can also block. So there are multiple realities in communities. You were also there to find different ways, find different paths to people are also like water. To find ways to bring messages or create.
But like
New.
organizations like Anonymous or Hackers Movement, they don't have a constitution, okay? So, for example, it can create much more problems.
Of course.
I don't know, our private information
Mhm.
is like we went through about this 3 times. On my personal hard disk, you won't believe it. I have the identification details of 80 million Turkish citizens.
Oh yeah, I downloaded the
Health information of 80 million Turkish citizens.
You
It's
downloaded
like
that
a few
too?
gigabytes. I have it.
Everybody downloaded it here in the audience?
Really? On the meeting?
Is this the
Yeah.
Turkish citizenship database?
The leak last
Yeah,
year.
leak 2
Yeah.
years.
And then
Yes,
why
yeah.
why do you
I have
download
it.
it? Why? Curiosity. Because
Curiosity.
you can.
I wanted to use it in case I need it for journalistic purposes.
very useful.
It's very useful. It's
Control F.
and it's not the leak that I did.
Fine.
It's the
No.
leak. It's the leak that organizations like
Understand.
Anonymous did. So it's also another ethical question that
Yes, of course.
we have no answer to.
No, of course not. But this is not a program where we always have to make a Yippie Janneke things, which is easy problems, easy answers. It's a complex subject, so let's keep it complex because but still understandable for everybody.
Great strategy.
That is the idea. Yes, please.
Yes. Hello.
Who are you?
Yes, my name is David Routing, and I have a suggestion for your conversation
Oh.
with regards to owning the infrastructure. Actually, if at this moment we would all install a certain app on our phone, we could create a meshed network all together without using any public or privately owned infrastructure. A couple of years ago, I came across a thing from a company called Open Garden. It's called FireChat. And FireChat actually allows us to communicate through phone directly and exchange messages, and each of the participating members is used as a hub to transcend my message to, for instance, my son over there.
It's based on proximity, right?
Yes, well, the proximity can be actually quite distance-full. It can be a couple of kilometers. So on a distance of 1 to 2 kilometers, depending of course on the environment, in a building with a lot of concrete and steel is difficult.
Is doing it. FireChat.
FireChat.
I'm installing it right
Yes.
now.
Is it open source?
It's, I'm not sure.
It's not
Open
open
Garden,
source. It's not
it's
open
not open source. You know it probably. But the concept of it is it can be done in overnight.
Great suggestion. Was that your thing? I mean,
Yeah,
let's-
it's my contribution for your discussion that you could have. We now have an infrastructure here. If we want it, instantly we have it.
Exactly. So you say, okay, let's be a practical community as well. Let's all be connected to FireChat, and then we could go talk to each other.
If they think they can shut us down in 5 minutes, we're up.
Yes. Good. Thank you for that suggestion.
What if it's malware?
Yeah, that's the problem. That's why I was looking with my eyes to dying. Expert, please, can you check it out before we all install it on our phone?
I'm gonna show you all a QR code. Please scan it, okay? I prepare it.
Okay.
After that, you're
but,
part of my botnet.
Okay. Before I'm gonna ask you to decide whether we're gonna we are gonna have a conversation where we split the conversation on infrastructure versus data. And using it, or we should have the complex discussion where we say it always influences each other, so we should talk about it in an integrated way. You can think about that, Mr. the Philosopher. I'm going to ask Femke what she thinks about this initiative, because this is an Amsterdam initiative which actually is challenging the city, actually, I would say, because they want a more democratic internet.
I always embrace these things, like Think Network. There are many other forms that are challenging the system at the moment. And I think we need that. We need that as a city.
Why?
Because people, if we're looking at the commons movements during times of day, there are always challenges in the system. And by that, as the system, and it's really strange for me talking from this huge system.
You're the system.
It's like I'm always telling the system from inside out, but we need knocking on the door, like be sharp, be there, and do challenge itself. I think if I look at the commons movement, and I already mentioned it during our previous dinner, that I'm not as acquainted in digital worlds as the people here on the table are. I'm more into the commons movement. And you see similar things, that the people are now stronger and getting more stronger because they are connected very well. If we can organize a form that we can, democratically in a way, find ways to create a society where there is a fair chance, and then the word fair, we need to discover what is fair, rediscover what is fair in a digital matter, and how infrastructure and connectivity is in that. Because if connectivity would be as important as water, as electricity, as sleep as a house, how would our world be developing, right? How would we live together? How would we be healthy? How would we take care of each other? So these are even more meta level questions. But this is, if we look at the city as a system, or as a government as a system, in a democratic way, which we are here in Holland, we are responsible, because of the representative democracy, for a kind of fundamental base. And how can we do that while on the other side, the commons movement is actually doing better things?
Yeah.
Yeah, and certain
Examples? What?
If we are looking at more social topics like poverty, like schuldhulpverlening,
Debt reduction.
debt reduction, reduction
or prevention.
prevention. How can we deal with that? And in really the core of the houses, we as a city create all kind of programs
Which are ineffective.
Ineffective.
So you say, interesting. If we see you as a representative of the system, you say we are really following these new things happening in the commons. Communities creating their own solutions to public problems like debt, health, which are actually doing better, creating better results in solving these public issues than we are doing them.
We are always responsive on what is happening in society, while commons movement are building in a way society, because idealistically, that system works. And if I'm very curious about it. I'm not saying it.
Okay, so if we would use that metaphor, I mean, it's interesting that you say we as a system, we want to create our own dissent, right? I mean, it's also because it's nice because the digital tooling program was called Dissent, but not dissent. As you say, we are creating our own dissent, tegenspraak, and we are. So that's why it's interesting that initiatives like these are there. What is your analysis of the system in which is failing public ambitions, right? I mean, why do you need guys like these? What is happening in the system as we know it, which you as a city dislike or are unhappy with? You say that's why we need the alternative to knock on our door. What is problematic at the current way of internet and in the municipality of Amsterdam?
The things that are mentioned already.
Oh, centralization,
power, and
abuse of
also,
data.
Yeah, it's very maybe already happening. I don't know if Google is that powerful. I think they want to be that powerful, but not quite know if we are heading for elections, for local elections, so that won't be on the map of Google that much, I think. But you never know. How will we be influenced by parties or commercial parties like Google in our elections? I mean, we can look at Russia and Trump, that discussion. But what if? And how can we create a democracy that people are heard and not parties, commercial parties are heard? So we have a market, like stores and an economy in a way that the offline community and a market that is organized in a way. We kind of know that. And now this digital layer is coming across. We are not already there yet to say this is how we are dealing with each other. So we need to rediscover our society in a digital matter in a way that how can we deal on a fair way also with these monopolists and all these kind of things. And I think we need to know that within the city, within this institute as a government, and partake in that.
Wait and see 2020, Mark Zuckerberg for president.
And let's
Mark
see
Zuckerberg for
what
president in the US. I hope
Note down this day. You'll see.
what kind of votes would that? Okay. Kind of a different voting system.
And then Oprah Winfrey, the other billionaire who's running against him. Yeah. Good. I hope.
I definitely prefer opera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but before this is getting much too lighthearted, this is not
No.
possible. Because it's a serious thing, of course, Marcus, because people are really talking about it. I mean, I already saw threads on or discussions on Facebook where there was somebody saying Google can better rule the country than any
Is that
democracy
the argument
can
we
do.
have today?
Unbelievable. No.
We are doomed as the
So
world.
bring in some serious matters now, because this is getting to
Yeah, hi. My name is Besat. I had actually two questions.
in the
on-
mic.
In the mic, all right. Well, two things about Google and Facebook. Their success, they thank their success to mostly to the how their applications work, like the algorithms and personalizing things for each user.
Yeah.
That's one thing, and it's free, of course, for you. So, well,
It's okay.
well, it's free. You're paying with your data, but you're not paying out of your pocket, like
It's-
directly.
Okay.
So, but so I read somewhere that you could if you would pay for the same services, if you would have like €7, pay €7 for a month.
Yeah.
The company, whatever company it is, it wouldn't be it wouldn't need to sell your data to earn. So
The
that would be-
monetary value of
Yeah,
sharing
exactly.
your data is
So-
about €7 per user per month.
For instance,
Yeah.
my question would be like, if there would be such a company, would it even survive? Would be as a community
Be willing.
be willing to pay that instead of giving away our data? So that's one question which I'm dealing with. And where we are talking about infrastructure and content, so where are these algorithms which make it easy for the users, which drag the users towards these applications which are gaining so much power?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, okay.
where those fall, are they also need to be considered commons or not?
Yeah. Nice philosophical question. Yeah. Oh, that was it already. Okay. Please stay there, because perhaps people don't understand your question or want to discuss it with you. Distill it. One is, are people willing to pay for it? Because if it's free, you are the product, of course. And the other question is a much more philosophical one, which is really interesting. Are the algorithms, should they be considered commons or public, but not private? The first question is a general question. Who wants to answer it? I mean, you don't need to be an expert. It's an idea of what the public wants. Would you want to pay for it?
Please do.
So I'm not on any social media. So
You're not on any social media.
Not on any social media.
Not
so
Signal,
I'm a bit
nothing.
biased.
Okay.
Not even on Signal. No.
Oh, interesting.
But
Through radio. What?
sorry.
How do you communicate?
But how?
Like-
How do you
Did you-
digitize this world?
Did you miss this?
Thank you, there's my...
Look at his t-shirt.
Where do you get your kittens? Where do you get kittens?
don't you watch
So-
kitten videos?
Okay.
Oh,
Pigeon-
I do not
pigeon
have
post.
a YouTube account. I do not have a YouTube account that I use to watch to subscribe to kitten channels. No, I do not. However, I do pay for my email account, for example, and well, that's kind of my primary communication method on the internet is email.
Email.
And
As for the many
me,
of us.
for me
yeah.
that's okay, because if I'm
Changing.
paying with out of my pocket, I'm not paying with my data, and to me that's important, because I want to I don't want my email provider
Okay.
to sell my
You
data.
say I have a very principled attitude towards it. If I want to pay for my services and I have a paid email account, then that's my way of communicating. And I do not want to be present on social media because of this business model, right?
Yes.
Okay. But the fundamental question is, in general, would people be willing to
People,
pay?
this is not a matter, I think, of paying or not paying. It's
Okay.
being aware of being not aware of
Okay.
what if we we know we are paying with our data. This is if I talk about getting, well, as a city, we are getting everybody on board, getting the city like everybody digitalized in a way. We have the stadspassers, the people on a discount card, are on welfare, for example, or elderly people. They're having a discount card. can we get those people also in touch with the digital identity they are, and be aware? I'm really making it
Yeah. Okay.
really segmented.
No, but the city is, for instance, suggesting to neighborhoods, my neighborhood, for instance, to use a WhatsApp account, right? I mean, to share data. You can even get a little placard that this neighborhood has a WhatsApp account together. This is considered to be preventive for breaking into your house. But WhatsApp is, of course, the business model is data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
This
I dislike
is
it.
and this is a service, because your way is email, as you pay for it. There are many people, and this is the thing, that if make it the comments for a wider audience, there are trends in it, and you sometimes need an access to make it for a larger group, but.
No, you should. No, I'm your topic is still on the table. So, is this answering your question? Is this the debate you want to have?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what is, because sometimes the person who's asking the question is actually answering it. You are, of course, wondering whether that is possible, whether people are willing.
Yes,
Okay.
of course. It's like, well, we have also, well, the NS, and you know, we are paying for it, and it's a public service.
Yeah.
But it's not like they're filming you and recording you for psychotropic, your behavior when you're inside the train for psychotropic, I don't know. So they're not. Sorry, what? You don't know, yeah. Maybe
The cameras are
I
there.
don't know if
The cameras are there, and you don't know the algorithm.
I heard a story that they were experimenting with. How do you say that? Subliminal things, for instance. They put how does lemon? How does that odor into the trains?
Yeah.
And then it appeared there was a social experiment. People are much cleaner then. So if the smell of lemon is infused into the trains, people are making less mess.
And lavender will make people sleepy.
Yeah, and there was a big debate there whether that was ethically acceptable to, without people knowing it, being influenced by odors. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the first part, because now we're going to go to the second question, and that's a really wonderful, difficult question. The algorithms
I
discussion.
try to be brief.
Yes.
I think that algorithms can be compared to law. No, they govern. They deal with the governmentality, to use a Foucaultian term, of the situation that they are regulating. So they are laws, and laws are not commons exactly. I mean, a constitution can be considered a common, a social contract, but laws are not exactly commons. I think that to have an ethical stance about algorithms, we need first and foremost to consider the sovereignty of participants inside an algorithm in relationship to the algorithm. I mean, sovereignty in the terms like, are you able to change that algorithm if you want, if the majority, or if there is a critical mass, there is a good reason? Can you have a political process that changes that algorithm? In most cases that were mentioned, Google, for instance, Facebook, this is not possible. Google will not expose the search rating algorithm to its participants. Facebook will not expose their decisions on what appears on your timeline. Thank you. To the participants. So there is no sovereignty.
It's their business formula.
It's
this.
It's the business logic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you would say, would you go as far as that you would say that for vital infrastructure, or as Femke nicely put, is connectivity something like water? If algorithms are such an important part of that connectivity, should there be a law which says these algorithms should be have a process of democratically be able to change, so they have to be open?
And this is already a negotiation on the governmental level. EU is sanctioning a lot of these companies.
A few remarks.
Yeah.
You compared laws to algorithms, but laws are public. They can be scrutinized.
But that's my
And
point. Yeah.
the algorithms are by definition secrets because
No, absolutely.
well, the algorithms that rule our world
Yeah,
are by
at the moment
definition
secret.
are secret.
That's unfortunate. There is no reason why they are secret.
Google got its more jealousy than Coca-Cola its recipe. Another one, these algorithms are the opposite effect of comments because they want to generate clicks, and you generate more clicks if you stay in somebody's bubble. So all these secret algorithms don't create a comments; they create secret bubbles
Yes.
in which
Absolutely
everyone.
agree.
That's
But keep in mind that there is no reason why these algorithms are secret. The only reason is profit, it's competition, and it's basically a really unethical situation that we must protest against.
Yeah, I agree with that, but unfortunately,
it's not the case.
these are very
We're
powerful
gonna
companies.
work on it. We're gonna work on it because like it's very obvious, and it must be obvious to policymakers. We live in the Netherlands. If there is a majority of people that votes for something, the Netherlands will change its laws.
So
yeah, but the Dutch can't change things on their own.
No.
Okay.
Not fast.
One more remark, and then I sit
we
down.
will.
Don't worry. Yes, please.
There is also a remark about paying with your data. There's a new browser called Brave, which shields your data.
Oh, it's also
And
not open source again.
It's not open source, so the algorithms are not publicly known.
But it offers the opportunity of micropayments with Bitcoin, which is anonymous. The payments are anonymous.
Bitcoin is not anonymous.
No. They, as far as I understand, they anonymize it for you. It goes to their site.
They try to anonymize.
Okay.
So let me ask you another. Thank you for that.
It's better than Edge or
very good, because
Chrome.
some of you really want to share, of course, your knowledge about technologies you use because you were worried about the discussion we have today, right? What is the best open source browser
For
at the moment?
I use Pale Moon.
Pale Moon. That is a browser which is open source, which means that all algorithms running it, governing it, are open.
Yeah, Firefox is also open. They came out with a new version. Chromium is less reviewed.
No, but just to give
for
give
anonymity, Tor browser is pretty good.
Yes. Okay, just to know there are some alternatives. If you want to know all of them, go to the bar at the end of the show and ask Jeremy, because he knows them all. Okay.
Free as in beer.
Oh yeah, you have to pay him with beer. Yes, that's his currency. Okay.
That's his algorithm.
Yes. Very good. So that is one of the. I mean, let's now go to my first introduction to before I introduce you to this. Here was, let's look at design principles, right? Of these new ways of fighting perverse consequences of the system we have. You say commercial media is by definition corrupt. And we need to interchange information. So let's look. So can there never be a commercial? In your idea, if we would talk about design principles, can there never be a commercial motive? Because then it would fail as a principle.
It can, there can, but it will always come with questions.
Yes.
Problematic. Like we are discussing about browsers here, and it even creates problems. It's not open source, so we're trying to fix something with probably a worse thing or another problem. We don't know, so it comes with problems. But for example, this exchange idea can lead to good solutions. In 2014, that's a very nice experience, by the way. It's literature defining. In 2014, there was a local election in Turkey, and we were making a very nice broadcast at the end. Everybody sent, pictures of claiming there's fraud in this election. Fraud in this election. We found votes thrown into the garbage. I don't know, voted legal documents in the trash, and they started sending pictures. We were like, wow, this is happening. So we made an announcement to our followers saying, please go to the school or the public...
the office where you can vote.
The office where you voted that day.
Yeah.
and take a picture of the tally sheet that was listed on the door. And like by law, it has to be listed there for a week. So it's a public document. Go, take a picture, send it to us. Istanbul, blah, blah, district, blah, blah, ballot box, and this number. So this is the system. And we were like blown away with the input. We were like, wow, we have to do something. And we had some friends in Turkey and in the US. We made a Skype call and we said, okay, let's build a very quick like infrastructure, whatever is the fastest. We bought a like, domain right away and a server and a very basic interface where you can upload a picture and choose these stuff. At least it could have been systematically uploaded rather than a tweet incoming with text. And 50,000 uploads were made there. Wow. And these were coming from the areas where not one party wins by landslide. Yeah. It was places
contested.
It was where the contest was going on. So it took 3 days until we analyzed it. And we created a report, sent it to opposition parties so that they can in 72 hours, you have to appeal the decision.
If something went
they
wrong.
did. And 2-3 years later, probably in beginning of this year, a lot of them in legal cases were resolved. Like there were corruption, seriously. But that was not in the number that affected the overall result. So then this was an open source code. Another civil society organization that was big, like in field. We were big in desktop, but they were big in field. They did it, they used it, they transformed it into something bigger. And for the last 4 elections, local, presidential, general.
It's being used.
It's still being used. And it, for example, I can clearly say, definitely, government right now is elected on fair conditions. If there is a mistake, it's minor and it's human mistake. It's not a pattern. For example, that's a big thing to understand or embrace democracy. Otherwise, you stick to the fact that this election is stolen. And we lost it. Normally we won it, but we lost it at the end of the day. So right now I can clearly say we lost it. So that's a big step to do more on democracy.
Interesting. What would you defer as a principle, a design principle for initiatives like these? Open source. That's why you used it as an example, right? It should be open source.
Open source is like a must and you can't give up on it.
Yeah. What would be for you? What would be design principles for you if we think about changing the system so it can actually function in a democratic way?
Well, what I would like to see is an app just like FireChat, but it's open source and it's and it has more features, basically. So people can communicate directly over Wi-Fi or Bluetooth connections, and own their own network.
Is because FireChat is not open source?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No. Vrijfunk software for the routers that you put on the routers and then run the Vrijfunk software. That's all open source. The frequencies are all open, available to everyone, and that really empowers people to build their own infrastructure.
Yes, that's again open source. I mean, but we already know that. So thanks. Yeah. So what would be a design principle for you?
That it will be accessible for everybody, not just the geeks. And I'm just saying this, and I want to refer to the design principles of the Commons, which actually. Our CSO, the Chief Science Officer, would be here. Would have been here, Caroline Nevian, and she's like, "Oh, it's too bad because, I was like, I cannot. What do you want to say at the table?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know." But the first design principles of the Commons of Eleanor Ostrom are rooted for me, and actually there are 8, and I can read them, but. Well, bear with me, I'm a bit dyslexic and I've written them myself. So, define a clear group of boundaries. Well, that's first rule. And I read them in a couple of articles today to really embody them and to see what is now happening, because these are the design principles of '68. So it's really interesting that commons movement this is human in a way, to find out how can we build a society. If it's digital or just physical, it doesn't matter, because we're human. And I think that is something I add to this. It needs to be human and accessible for everybody. And this is also what Eleanor was saying. The first was define a clear group of boundaries. The second one is match rules governing use of common goods to local needs or conditions. The third is to ensure that those affected by the rules can participate in modifying the rules. And that's also what you were saying, indeed. Make sure that the rules making, this is like my writing. Make sure the rule making rights of commodity members are respected by outside authorities. So this is also about the law and the rules of the commons. Yeah. And I think this is important, that we also have the law, because this is
in a democracy.
In a democracy, yes, and also in this common. If commons are there, we need a democracy that hosts, in a way, the commons.
Yeah.
The fifth one is develop a system carried out by community members for monitoring member behavior. So it is also about that we are connected in the same, behavioral things. Use graduate sanctions for rule violators. So there needs to be sanctioned, but they can be graduate. I was like, okay, you can make a mistake. It's not that bad. But if you are getting into a pattern, it's bad. So this is, again, something which also passed the table already. The seventh one is provide accessibility, low-cost means for dispute resolutions. Yeah. Interesting. Low cost means, and that because the other one was saying easy access for everybody. It doesn't need to be in a niche, and I think we need to be mature on certain things, that we are past a certain time of day, that we are past that geekiness niche.
And what is necessary for that? So if that is a principle for you, you say you already mentioned, for instance, the people who have a stadspas,
and it's just
a welfare discount card. Yeah. What is necessary for that? How can we get initiatives like these? I mean, this is free internet for all, right? I mean, so that would be great, because if you look at what people pay a month to be connected at the moment, it's already a threshold, right? So what are you going to?
Well, that's his second thing that he's working on. That's his Bits for Freedom work that he's doing with his community, to make it also knowledgeable in all kinds of a broader network that people. I mean. These kind of networks, these commons, they don't have a marketing machine or allowance to make it to the crowd. I mean, and actually that is necessary in a different way. And maybe cities or governance can help providing that thing. Last one is very long one. You can read it, and then we're past the 8 design principles.
Responsibility for governing the common resources is in nested tiers from the lowest level up to the interconnected system. Yeah. No. So actually, thank you for summarizing. For those who have never been to an evening of the Commons, Eleanor Ostrom was the first to make this old knowledge system we have as human societies already from the medieval societies to the new, and she said this is a new way of organizing society, right? And she already formulated 8 principles, and you say let's use these principles formulated already 50 years ago also for the digital, for the new commons.
Well, redefine them.
Yeah, of course. What is this enough? What are we missing?
No, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
Already.
Well, she won the Nobel Prize for it, so yeah.
Above the media, above the average, I would say.
Do something,
so
above the average,
yeah. Let's say, I think I I have two book or reading recommendations. There is one work that we did in the Decent project with the Sorbonne, the Department of Economy, with Carlo Vercellone and his team. There is a PDF you can find online. It's called Knowledge Commons.
Yeah.
It's like 100 pages that starts from Ostrom and tries to bring the concept of commons into the immaterial world, because of course this thing
is about trees.
It's visionary, but it's about trees. It's about natural
Yes.
resources. So it's like it's visionary, but it needs
an
some
update.
Yeah, a face. Yeah.
Facelift.
No, you can be gold.
Yeah. And then another thing, since we mentioned Caroline, I would say let's go and read Caroline's doctoral dissertation, which was written back in the 90s.
Already,
and it's
yes.
amazingly visionary, designing for trust.
Yes.
And I think that is an important concept.
Yes.
that if we talk about commons, we also talk about trust. So we have to trust that we all are going to respect, even beyond the law. We do not need a law or a police to enforce it. We need really to understand that it's in the interest of everyone that the commons are respected. So this is like a sort of idealistic utopian thing that we should all keep in mind.
Yes.
And I think trust is a big part of it, and designing for trust.
Yeah.
And not only for trustworthiness, but really for the human process of trust, then that is the most important thing. So, sorry to miss Caroline, really, but I think we are very lucky to have a CSO in Amsterdam that is not just, is not a politician, definitely. It's actually an amazing writer that we can go and read.
And if this series, the last quarter of an hour until 10 o'clock, and then it's time for you to get free beers in exchange for information. This series, New Democracy, is really trying to, look at all these different phenomena, right? We talked about the city as a commons. We talked about descent and all these digital tooling. We talked about the representative democracy, but even economic systems and the lack of democracy in that, right? So if we would think of how these initiatives, but initiatives of digital commons, and there are many more, can actually hack or transform representative democracy, yeah? You already mentioned a beautiful example with your ballot photo initiative, where you can actually have a popular or commons answer to, how do you would say it, inspectors of elections, which are
Definitely,
also there
inspectors
officially.
of election. That's a nice description.
Yes. What are other potentials? I mean, we are going to go into a local election. You are already worried whether Google or Facebook is actually influencing that. How can actually digital tooling like this hack or help representative democracy as we know it? You can think about it? You don't know this?
Is it about this?
Yeah, sorry.
Is it about this?
It's partially about. It's actually about everything that's been discussed tonight.
Really?
Yeah. The thing is that I really liked how far we can get in an hour with you guys talking. I appreciate it a lot. So thanks for that. It's just that I have some things that I just want to get off my mouth out there, which I hope will be taken into consideration. That's all.
Who are you?
My name is Bertram Richter. But the thing is this, we are looking at this, even though we're talking about democracy, to my feelings, as something that's isolated. What I just hope is that we take into consideration the challenges that we face when we try to develop this further. And these challenges to me are two things, basically. One thing is education. It's because education brings forth communication, in my opinion, which also means that we need to change the way we look at this right now, because education as we use it right now is based on, funny thing is that I see it as based on a class system. We have low education, middle education, university education, and we all, we get STEAM to get to that place, and we get STEAM to get to that place. But to me, learning to communicate in terms of discussion, debating, critical thinking, to me is a skill, not a talent. So I think we should not just teach this to people that do pre-university education, but to everyone. Yes. This can be brought on as a skill, and only then will we have a broader understanding of the concepts that have been talked about this evening. Second point is, I know I'm being a little broad here, but the second thing is has to do with a challenge that has been going on for many years. It is the challenge that has to do with marketing as a concept. Since
you mean defining citizens as consumers, right?
Exactly.
That's what you mean.
Yes, we became from a society of needs to society of desires over the course of the decades, and this concept could bring a challenge to what we've discussed,
Yes,
because
that's why.
how do you prevent that which we have discussed tonight develops into something we are seeing now in terms of centralization of internet?
Yeah.
So that's all.
Thank you so much for that bigger context, because both are. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So for everybody agrees, I think that critical thinking is a skill and not a talent, and it is of course bookmarked as a 21st century skill and not for nothing. But you're right.
Yes.
Thank you so much for.
The only small thing I want to add to that is because I reason this because if you look at the way democracy is ruled now,
Yeah.
you see many people saying, I don't care.
Yeah.
And then when things go wrong, are booing all over the place and being angry. And this can be
I agree,
prevented.
yeah, I agree. Thank you so
Yes.
much. And so thanks for that, but everybody adheres to that immediately. And the other thing is important, I think. Can this movement be as, let's say, inclusive as Femke would like to, if we're still in a mental state of consumerism? I look at you, but perhaps you.
Yeah. Like you asked a few questions ago.
Yeah.
What do we miss?
Yes.
I believe we miss the fact that I'm dying to buy a new iPhone X tomorrow.
Yeah.
We are in crave of it. I don't have, like, nobody around me has time or willingness to use a open source software, because that's not what's advertised. Okay. We want to, like, this consumerism is making us blind, and at the same time, digital commons if it's a movement, let's say,
Yeah.
I believe is neglecting the fact that we are in this, we are, how do you say, blinded with this consumerism. Okay. We can't function and act as if everything is available for digital commons movement to spread, or no. There are so many blocks that we have to solve. I believe that's what we are missing. And my suggestion here, as someone coming from an advertiser background, to use advertising for public good. The picture that you see behind me is an event that we organized 5 years ago.
Look at the picture behind you.
This thing.
Yeah.
The background
Yeah.
of this slide is Galata Tower in Istanbul. It's one of the most beautiful monuments in the city, and it's a vertical, it's tower, okay, and it reminded us of Twitter timeline. So we spent 2 months making campaigns on Twitter, hashtag campaigns, letting influential people know about a forum that we are organizing on Galata Tower, and that night we reached millions of people with the forum down there.
That's actually hacking
Yes.
marketing, right?
Hacking marketing for good. I believe you should have more marketing people
Meaningful
on
marketing.
the team. Meaningful marketing
Yes.
people, yes, not evil
'Cause-
corporate marketing.
Yeah, and I'm not that much afraid of in that sense market, like commercial things. I mean, if a bakery to
Yeah.
get your bread is also there.
Sure.
It's money, and we need also money.
We shouldn't fear these words,
No.
because there are
But we
big
need
problems that we
to
should.
band it to make it also that they are a part of the responsibility of society. And I think some companies are really too young. They're past puberty, or not even that they are seeing that they are a part of the community, or of the world, of this entire
Yeah,
thing.
you say, I mean, you're making that analogy because pubers have not a developed brain yet. So,
no, but also because of its blurriness.
Yeah, yes.
I
And
mean,
hormones and
hormones,
stuff, yes.
blocking,
Understand.
marketing
That's
is
the
blocking.
Yeah.
No, but the mental state of consumerism is, I mean, the neoliberal order or the neoliberal culture, as some philosophers would call it. Is that a problem or for digital commons, or is digital commons an answer or commons to neoliberal culture?
Difficult question. I tend to see neoliberal culture, subculture, I would call it, a
Very
problem.
good. Yes.
And it is a problem also for the digital commons because it inherently rests on the concept of neutrality. I mean, it's it's the rationality of neoliberalism has brought us also the break of codes, the break of castes. So you are what you want to be, is the American dream. You can make money even if you're born on the street. You can be whoever you want, and this is like the underpinning of that rationality of governance, that frees you because money is the only meter of success that you have.
And beer.
And beer. Something that goes very well with Protestant ethics, and that's Weber. So
that's why it's incorporating all these other.
It's very well incorporated.
Yeah.
So in that moment, in the moment in which we see the process of valuing things as a completely neutral, axiomatic, mathematical model, then we have a problem because commons are made. It's moist media, like Roy Ascot said. It's messy. It's not a clear cut what you're going to make out of the commons governance. Trust can be a messy process. So it's rationalizing this sort of thing, bringing it to market all the time, referring to the market as a way to measure it, is very naive.
Yes.
That I also would call puberty in a philosophical sense.
Very good.
So I think in that case we need to find other sort of categories.
And then commons can be an alternative.
And
for
commons can be. I mean, it has to be really. We need to work a lot on it, and the attempt needs to be that of creating new forms of rationality, new forms of liberation. That go beyond this sort of, completely nonsensical marketing bombardment of ads because attention is the basic, extractivism of attention is what these companies maintain themselves with.
The funny thing is of economy as such, it appears to be only about marketed about money value systems, right? Because money is what it sticks. But it's also about the other values, and that is messy. It's messy if it's about sustainability and it's about the social, the human factor of life, if you're happy or whatever. And we cannot measure that. We couldn't measure that well. And maybe in a digital time, we can measure or track it, monitor it in a different way that it can be more into these kind of systems or algorithms. I don't know. I think we need to reinvent that really polyphone thing in people, planet, profit. We forget the planet and we forget the people in that economy sense. Trust is the most important thing if we talk about economy. We do not deal with a party we do not trust. Then we don't have a deal. And this is something... why do we keep forgetting that in the system? This is something I think of a lot.
People, planet, profit is a wrong issue. We should talk about planet first.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, okay.
People. We are born from the planet, and not about profit.
Yes, profit should be. Some people would say, people and planet are the right values. Profit is the consequence of that.
And then, as commons, it's enough.
Yes.
Yeah, but now to make it easy, We have 60 billion euros in the Horizon 2020 program. It's mostly used.
Okay, so wait, it's a subsidy program for the European
Yeah,
Union
okay.
to create innovation and scientific knowledge. Yes.
It's mostly used to, well, make our world better, but it's not used for social values.
No.
And if we talk about the future, we could use what is the buzzword of the next decade. We will talk about circular economy.
Okay.
And if we make that not a circular economy, but a circular society where we own the economy, and we own it, because the economy is
Okay.
nothing more than oikos, our home, yeah? And then we could really provide a new society, a new way of organizing ourselves, which is easy to sell on the internet, use information technology for it, and it will give a very new view of well, our
Lives.
no
Of a view of our.
a view of our possibility and capabilities, but they're ours and they're not something we can buy on the
Okay.
market. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. For you, you said there are of course these already initiatives, developments which are creating alternatives. That's what you actually say. Thank you for that. My question before we had some people, and I want to end this conversation with that, some suggestions. I mean, of course, you think immediately with your initiatives on all these places where dictatorships are actually shutting down the internet, and then you come in with your teams, and there is free internet for all, right? I mean, and actually making sure that initiatives like 140 journals actually can exist to transform or to critique governments as they function in a non-democratic way.
But as a paradox, I have to add this.
Yeah, because
now we, on this table, on these circumstances, these platforms are evil. When you go to the street level in Turkey, Twitter is a tool to liberate.
Yes.
Of
So
course,
that's
that is
that's
the
another
dilemma.
paradox.
Yes,
That's
a
that's
dilemma.
my Stadsbus, my welfare
Like
card
not
people.
fire chat
No.
is welcomed this
That's
way.
why she says one of the principles should be it should be inclusive and not only for the techies, or you used another word.
Nerds,
for the
whatever.
nerds, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Geeks.
Yeah, so you're right, of
And I
course,
celebrate
that. I didn't get offended.
and Facebook and WhatsApp, of course. So if the alternative is not popularly known and inclusive, it will always be only a niche, and it will not be an alternative.
For
That's
example,
what
he
you
doesn't
say.
use a social media platform
Yeah, he doesn't
or a
want to.
messaging tool,
Yeah,
but WhatsApp is the safest thing we have.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
this is a big paradox.
Yeah, that's
And we
that's
live
of
in
course
it.
a paradox. And so my question was, how can we think of hacking the representative democracy as we know it?
Yeah.
And you say we have a dilemma now because the alternatives are all in the niche, still in the niche.
Marginalized.
Yes.
Alternatives
And
are marginalized.
And can we make those commercial parties that are also past puberty co-responsible for society? I mean, businesses as such, of course, they have like profit things.
But you say, let's talk to Facebook?
Yeah, why not
Okay.
always open conversation?
Okay.
But that's the Dutch way, for the Amsterdam way to do things.
Yes.
Zuckerberg to 2020. You'll see.
I'll have nightmares.
Yeah.
Well, I have to rethink it.
German.
What was the question?
He still is in mind. Yeah, he still is in. I was saying, okay, so even our Minister of Interior actually went yesterday in a big thing on media, commercially owned stuff media, but also on the public media, that she was worried about the influencing of Russia into the Dutch democratic system, right? And how can we use, my question was, how can we use digital commons to hack the representative, hack representative democracy as we know it? I mean, can we, I mean, your example is of course quite clear, but are there other ways to do that?
Well, the best example I think that we have in Europe on a large scale is given in Spain.
Barcelona.
So in Barcelona, in Madrid also,
Yeah.
we have great result, which I think are two mayors which are an example for Europe, Manuela Carmena in Madrid and Ada Colau in Barcelona. We have a movement that was on the street that had to deal with police beating them up, and 5 years later they became parliamentarians in the European Commission, parliamentarians so they managed to scale up to an institution.
Yeah.
And
for that they use digital tooling, right?
they use heavily digital tooling,
Yes.
also Twitter, and this is a great success story of people that really manage to change things,
Yeah.
no? to deal with major corporations and tell them, no, you have to change the algorithms. Both we are in Amsterdam and in Barcelona, we are dealing with things like Airbnb that are like also harming really the economy and extracting it. So we deal, and they are dealing with it really frontally. So these are like very good examples, and they did that digitally.
Yeah.
Is not, I like to emphasize, only a technology that will solve this. Is not a machine for voting, which I really advise against completely, because it wouldn't be verifiable, the vote, really, by anyone running that vote. So keeping the process human, but then enhancing it, it's almost the cybernetic approach, is the cyborg dream also, enhancing really still a human mind with these tools, and allowing people to get in touch and lift topics that are not always raised from the top. So like Elinor Ostrom says, leave a way for the bottom up to actually put things on the table and influence. And that is, to be concrete, to be really concrete, I think the effort that was done there, the effort that has been done marginally by pirate parties that then sort of lost it.
Iceland experience.
The Iceland experience that have been supported also by the Green left in Europe with Julia Reda, who will be here in Amsterdam, I think, like within 1 month. Like these sort of experiences that cross the spectrum, the institutional spectrum, from the top to the bottom, they are the very interesting experiences to look at.
Yes. Take a deep breath. Thank you so much for this fantastic conversation. Give them a big thank you with an applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Natasha. Great moderator. I really love
we always announce the next one. And the next, of course, this is what I already talked to you about, the exposition House of Wisdom, in which they investigate, where it's also a library investigate the role of libraries and archives in a democracy, House of Wisdom. And then on the 28th of November, really in Dutch, Who's Saving the Democracy? About with Oswald Spengler as Can We Save Democracy? And then on the 6th of December, Resilient Democracy in the 21st Century. How can we think and redesign the institutions and institutional debates? So quite a lot of things where you can go to if you think this is an interesting conversation. Time to continue the conversation, but then with a drink at the bar. Thank you so much for your interesting, concentrated presence. Thank you, audience. Thank you.
Yeah.
Stay in touch.